I hope you can see this tweet of this meme that says, with a picture of a thoughtful looking man who looks like a midget. I wonder if he's some sort of character from some story or that I'm not aware of. Something like, I don't know, Lord of the Rings or um, Game of Thrones or something like that. Anyway, it says, so the billions of people who existed before your Jesus are burning in hell for being born too early in history. And I thought it was a good question. So it's saying, oh, where, okay. So obviously, Christianity is a different religion to the ones before. Uh, Christianity is based on Judaism. Judaism doesn't particularly mention a um, heaven or hell, but Jews go on about their afterlife, which could be heaven or hell or reincarnation. And the point of this meme is to ask, where did people before Christianity was established think they were going after they died? We sort of know already that um, the Greeks had this idea of crossing the river Styx, putting a coin on the eyelid of the deceased to pay the ferryman to take the deceased from one side of the river Styx into the other side, which is apparently to the Elysian fields, and also that there was a place called Hades, which is the underworld. I suppose way back then people thought hell would be deep in the earth and heaven would be, well, somewhere in the sky where you can't see. And there have been Christian portrayals of people floating on clouds, playing a harp, which I imagine was the most beautiful music that people then could think of. So it would be a very peaceful, uh, an elevated kind of experience, I suppose. I once at the barbecue looked up at the sky and I thought, um, wouldn't it be fun to be on a cloud looking down at people, maybe taking out your binoculars to take a closer look at what was going on underneath and maybe seeing something surprising and having a double take. But there you are. There were then these ideas of um, elevated living. So the pantheon of Greek deities would uh, include Zeus and his wife and their children living on Mount Olympus, from which they would, from time to time, descend to have a look at human beings. So there is this idea of a divine existence, uh, elevated and high above common man. And so there are, well, many different ideas of an afterlife, including reincarnation. And recently I wrote a blog about what I thought would happen. So I'll read it up to you. It's not very long. It was written on the 16th of January 2024, and it's called The Snakes and Ladders Game of Reincarnation. If I were God, I would divide humanity into Jews and Gentiles. Gentiles would be divided between Muslims and idolaters, which would include Christians and Hindus, as well as Buddhists. Buddhism is described as an atheist philosophy, and atheists are basically people who worship their own dumb opinions and often say they would rather die than admit they are wrong. Buddhism is basically codified Hinduism without the idolatry. In practice, however, Buddhists are often seen praying to the statues of the Buddha. All Christians are deemed to be guilty of idolatry and blasphemy, with 2 death penalties awaiting them in the afterlife, one for idolatry and one for blasphemy. After these are discharged, bad Christians would be reincarnated as Hindus and good Christians reincarnated as Buddhists. So the idea is that Christians are bottom of the heap. And after having been, I think the penalty is stoning. Hold on a minute. So I have to look at the 36 capital offences and just check if blasphemy and idolatry have the same penalty. Yes, it is by stoning. So apparently stoning is the worst form of punishment, and apparently punishment by burning is not so bad, and it's not burning at the stake in the Christian way, but it is conducted by pouring molten metal into one's throat rather than burning at the stake. And then well, actually, I don't know. So Miss Rocky said stoning was the worst, followed by burning, but some people might think they might prefer to be stoned to death rather than molten metal poured, which would be a mixture of lead and tin, into one's throat. It just seems, well, unnecessarily um, involved, I suppose. I mean, doesn't tin cost money as well? So I don't really know. Okay, let's just assume that they're all, just as bad. It's just as bad to be beheaded as it is to be strangled, which is to to be punished by burning and to be punished by stoning. I think different people will have different ideas of, or will have different preferences. So maybe we can't objectively prove that one form of punishment is obviously worse than the other. Um, on the other hand, we know that beheading is meant to be the quickest form of death. So perhaps it's the one to be to be preferred if you want a quick and relatively dignified execution. So where was I? So I'm basically saying that for Christians, they would, okay, let's just assume that there is an afterlife and there will be punishment in the afterlife. So Christians would have to be stoned for their idolatry and then stoned for their blasphemy. And then, only then would they be reincarnated as Hindus or Buddhists, depending on whether they have been relatively good Christians, apart from their idolatry and blasphemy, or not such good Christians. So if they're bad Christians, they are reincarnated as Hindus, and if they're good Christians, they are reincarnated as Buddhists. So what happens next? Let me read to you. Good Hindus would be reincarnated as Buddhists, and bad Hindus would be reincarnated as Christians. Good Buddhists would be reincarnated as Muslims, and bad Buddhists would be reincarnated as Hindus. Good Muslims get to heaven, bad Muslims are reincarnated as Buddhists. Most Jews, especially if they live in the West, have at least one death penalty awaiting them in the afterlife, so there is no need to envy them. Bad Jews are reincarnated as Hindus, and good Jews are reincarnated as Muslims, when they will finally have a fighting chance of getting into heaven. So that's my map of the punishments in the afterlife. Now, what has this to do with this meme that I just showed you? So I'm saying it would be Judaism. Okay, it would be the punishment of Hinduism and Buddhism before Christianity and Islam. So the people who died would well, I don't know. What kind of afterlife the Romans and Greeks believed in? I mean, we have no record. There is no holy book saying. They're only stories, of course. So I think we just have to make do with Hinduism and Buddhism and Judaism. But obviously, if Christianity hadn't come along, then neither would Islam have come along. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say about the hierarchy of the 5 world religions and how people would be punished if I had anything to do with it. And yes, let me know what you think. I wonder if God, if he exists, agrees.